I am an occupational therapist. I'm an educator. I'm a professional coach. And I'm a little baby business owner. And I say that because I've been in entrepreneurship for about 6 months. And I'll say in that time, I've learned more in that 6 months than I have in 3 college degrees. There's so much more to business ownership that I ever realized, but I also didn't realize that I could do it. And I think the old me was very much a conventional thinker, very in the box, very much a rule follower, not very innovative. So it's a great fit for the Army. I did what I was told to do and I was happy doing it. I didn't dislike being a conventional person and very much, doing it just because this is the way that it has been done. So after going through my active duty service, I worked as an occupational therapist on active duty. And I worked at a variety of different places. Primarily, I worked in orthopedics. So outpatient, finger, hand, shoulder injuries, a little bit of brain injury, and then mostly in behavioral health and mental health. And when I joined the military, I thought I was going for a different pathway. And the Army always teaches you, what you didn't know you needed to know. And that's how I got into working in the behavioral health field. To be honest, I hardly realized it was something that occupational therapists did. And it was an amazing opportunity for me to learn more about my own mental health, as well as how to connect to others. And one thing that the Army has been really working on improving and has made a lot of traction with is not just being reactive for mental health care, but starting to be more proactive. It doesn't help to, wait until something isn't going well and then say, let's fix this, versus also trying to treat it both ways. So that really comes with the term resilience, is being able to persevere in your current circumstances, but also be able to bounce back when you have circumstances that, are unforeseen. Everybody has things that come up that we don't expect. And so having those resilient skills to help us, persevere through those things is so important. And so that was my big takeaway from, my time going through different aspects of mental health throughout the military. So I got out of the Army in August of 2019. And at that time, I went to what I believed was my dream job. I wanted to go into graduate school education. So I went right into a prestigious graduate medical school, was hired as a professor, and I really liked it. I was passionate about being able to educate people about working as an OT in a non-traditional setting in the Army, as well as motivating individuals to work in mental health, a place where there's not a lot of jobs outside of the Army. So really appreciated being able to connect with young professionals. But I hit burnout really quickly. I didn't realize that I could be satisfied with my job, but then so burned out in other areas. And so it really caused me to start reflecting on, like, what do I want out of life? How can I be happy in one area supporting other people, but then be struggling in my own personal life to not have any balance and feel this sense of burnout? So I actually found some motivation from my husband, who did the military spouse thing, moved with me, 8 times, had to drag his career around with me, and just smiled and did it. And he worked as a high school special education teacher, really loved his job. And right when the pandemic started, one night he came up to me and said, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to become a real estate agent. With all of my wife's support and love, I'm like, people are losing their jobs, like, you're going to quit a job that you love. And so he was like, this is the pathway for me. Like, this is where I'm at. And so, he went on this journey. He started in real estate in September of 2020, and he didn't sell a house until April of 2021. And so when you think about entrepreneurship, we look at those that are very successful and we're like, wow, this is so fantastic. He didn't know how to open an LLC. He didn't know, what an EIN was, any of the logistics behind that. He just learned as he was going, just trudged through it because he had a passion for wanting to connect with people and just have a different lifestyle, ultimately of having more time with our children. So he wanted a more flexible career that would give him that opportunity. So I share all that because he was really my motivation to understanding that you can make a change. So, I shared a little bit about who I was before, conventional, traditionalist, not innovative. And the idea of not dinging a crazy idea was something that came across, my mind and my plate of, I was always the one to say no. Like, do you want to change careers? No, it's not the right time. Do you want to do this? Nope. Like, maybe we can't afford this. Should we do that? Nope. That's that conventional conservative side of me. And I learned about this idea of never dinging a crazy idea, that if you always say no to things, then you never do anything. You're always saying no. There's never going to be that great opportunity. And so I started to see that in him, and also realize that for myself, that, I've always told myself no too. I'm supposed to stay on the traditional pathway. This is how I do it. This is the only way that it should be. And so that really started to drive my why of what I wanted. I was never unhappy with any of my career pursuits. I love occupational therapy. I love teaching at the graduate level. And I was like, what am I looking for? And from seeing his opportunity to go through starting a small business, I started to see the passion he loved in creating his own business, and started to reflect on what that might look like for me. I still wanted to connect with individuals, to really help others, and still use my skills as an occupational therapist, but I needed to think about my how. And that's where I had to kind of go through some of those more logistic components of starting a business. So for me, I ended up settling on seeking out professional coaching, because I felt like it really aligned with occupational therapy. I didn't want to go back into just a traditional occupational therapy job, despite my love for the profession. And I learned more about coaching and the opportunity to really connect with people outside of the traditional realm of healthcare. And I think some of the things that became really powerful for me were how powerful coaching can be. And a lot of people haven't heard of professional coaching or have not gone through it themselves to maybe understand the impact and the opportunity that it can have on someone. But what's so great about coaching is it's strength focused, it's non-judgmental, and you're really facilitating and not educating someone. And so I started to learn more about the profession and the idea of just being able to help individuals to maximize pretty much their potential professionally and personally, which is a lot of what occupational therapists do. And so I learned more about that, and I personally decided to pursue a coaching certificate. So I got a certification from the Mayo Clinic in health and wellness coaching, just because I felt like it would help me personally understand a little bit of the difference between occupational therapy and coaching. And so one of the things we thought about with that was, what would be our business's salient differential? What makes us different from everybody out there who's coaching somebody in business, who's helping somebody else? And part of that was going back to my roots in mental health. And we decided to really focus on a holistic approach to professional coaching. And so what that means to us is that you can't just silo anything in life. You can't just look at somebody's business productivity. You can't look at how many phone calls you made, sales you made, deals you closed, and determine, are you happy? Because we are not able to live our lives in silos like that. And so for most people, if you were to hire a productivity coach, they'll ask you those questions about, did you make your phone calls? What's your best time of day to call? And those are all really great questions, but they may not be digging into the details of that you couldn't afford childcare. And so your 2-year-old is home and it's disrupting your times with the ideal phone calls. And so that childcare is really, causing extreme stress on you that's dipping into your business productivity. And so starting to really look at that holistic approach has allowed us to connect with people on a different level. And so we spend a lot of time really educating our future clients on what that looks like. And there's been a shift in our culture as a whole society, where people are starting to really focus more on wellness as a whole individual, even in the professional circumstance. People are talking about burnout and what that means. And leaders are starting to think more about their employees as humans, and not just, are you late? Are you here? And understanding that people that want to be at work and happier at work usually are more productive with the work that they do. And so for me, a big thing that impacted me with coaching was really that perspective of helping empower others. And so with coaching, there's a technique you can use called scaling. So we've all been to the doctor and they'll ask you, what's your pain scale? 0 to 10, 0 being none, 10 being we need to call 911, you rate it. That's what I mean by scaling. So you can use that with different circumstances. So an example could be, how satisfied are you with your current work status? 0 to 10, 0 being not satisfied, 10 being very satisfied. So if somebody tells me, well, I'm at about a 7. Okay. Well, why did you rate yourself at a 7 instead of a 5? So when I ask somebody that, they might tell me that, I do like the place that I work. I feel like my coworkers are supportive. We have the equipment that we need. And they're listing the things that are positive for them. But if I ask them, why did you rate yourself at a 7 instead of a 10? Well, this company lacks this. I really don't appreciate the support in this. I feel like I'm not satisfied in these areas. And the first thing I'm asking them is, why are you not higher? What are all these negative reasons why you're not at that 10? Instead of focusing on all of the positive things for why that person acknowledged that they're at a 7 right now. And so part of coaching really looks at meeting people where they're at and being able to identify, like, okay, here's where you're at. Let's talk about where you want to go. That doesn't mean we're not going to talk about overcoming obstacles, but that was really powerful for me to understand just the perspective shift and how powerful that is to help someone else shift their perspective. So we were just like, we want to do all the things and we're going to help everybody. And it wasn't until I really understood the benefit of really leaning into like a client customer persona, that I started to lean into what that would look like differently for really targeting different market segments. Yeah, that's kind of how we ended up really trying to kind of like shape our brand and our business. And so was the start of how we got the how part of setting up a holistic coaching business. So from there, we went through all the logistical things. I went and looked at a lot of online research, figured out, the process for our business bank account, LLC, a lot of great resources, like score.org. South Carolina, the state I live in, has like a small business website it's like a one-stop shop for starting a business. So there's so many online resources that were very user-friendly. And then a lot of networking. So being able to go to organizations like this where you find mentors and be able to connect with other veterans, other entrepreneurs who are able to, give you your lessons learned so you don't have to learn things the hard way. And I feel like by doing that networking and connecting, I was able to progress through that a lot faster than my husband was, who was just kind of trying to figure it out by himself. So I can't emphasize the power of networking more. I did decide to go back to school to get my master's in business administration, but I'll caveat to say that it is not needed to go through opening a business, to be a business owner. I am a love for learner type of person, and so I enjoy it. And as a veteran, a benefit that I have is the GI Bill. And so for me, that was a place where I felt like I would gain benefit in having some additional knowledge. And so I was able to use my GI Bill to pursue my MBA. And because my previous education has been in healthcare, I don't even know how to hardly balance an Excel spreadsheet. And so there were a lot of things that like you can teach yourself, but I'm finding value in learning from others in a structured format because that's the way I learn. So by no means is it a requirement, but for me, it's been a really great fit. And I've been enjoying the challenge of connecting with other business entrepreneurs, and learning how to use the GI Bill. It does cover my tuition, and you do get a monthly stipend, which helps offset some of the time you would spend working in terms of balance of income. So that's been really great for me, and also being able to connect with other people about technology and marketing and social media, because we don't have a whole team. There's 2 of us that run 2 businesses, and so we have to really learn how to work smarter in order to maximize our time. And so ultimately, I think that it's been a really great experience. We're excited to see where things go for this. But the biggest thing for us is always making sure we're coming back to our why we're doing this, and making sure that we're staying grounded with that, reminding us that some of the best things we've learned in life come from people, not from doing specific things or trainings. And so we try to come back a lot to the value of networking and learning from others. And then making sure we're always focusing on the client or the customer. A lot of